Okay, so just a quickie for you here. If I said to you, where does Santa Claus live? What are you going to say? Apart from, you believe Santa Claus? No. Where does Santa Claus live? You know, we all know it. So, as you can see, I've got in front of me, I've got the Google Maps up there. And of course, most of you will say the North Pole. And if I said, if you wanted to go and visit Santa Claus, how would you get there? Well, obviously, you could go by boat or plane, and then most of you, I'm sure, would say you'd then get a sled to Santa Claus. However, whether this is a Mandela effect, whether Google's messing around or what, I couldn't really tell you. But as you can see, that's the UK. Let's check the North Pole and see what comes up, shall we? North Pole. Let's see where the North Pole is. As you can see here, the North Pole apparently is now in the middle of the Arctic Sea. I'm just going to zoom out. So you can now no longer visit Santa Claus because he's in the middle. The North Pole is now in the middle of the Arctic Ocean. So if anyone would like to explain that to me, then please do, because I find that very interesting, because clearly, I'm going to zoom it, do it again. There you go. So I've zoomed in. As you can see over here, it shows you it's in the middle of the... And yet there are apparently photos of people who's visited the North Pole. I'm zooming out again, as we can see. So you can see the North Pole is right here in the middle of the Arctic Ocean. Well, anyone like to explain that? Please have a go in the comments. I would love to hear your explanation as to how come the North Pole is in the middle of the sea and is not where everyone believed it to be. As you can see here, the North Pole and pictures of the North Pole. Here's the thing up the email, the website at the top there. The North Pole. Let's just have a look what we got. Santa City, we are high above Santa City, North Pole. Look at those mountains. See Santa City in the middle of the picture. The North Pole. Here it is, the famous North Pole. You pass under the North Pole as you arrive in Santa City. The sign on the North Pole says Merry Christmas. Clumsy, the elf, made the pole himself. Do you think he did a good job? Head elf's old hut. The head elf's old elf hut. The elves live in elf huts until we had some fancy new Christmas buildings built. Look at all the snow, and that's in August. You can see the elf footprints and candy cane fence too. Elf huts. Here's Dancer Drive, one of the streets at the North Pole. It has lots of elves huts on it. These are just a few of them. Do you like them? If you look carefully, you can just barely see an elf going around the corner of a building. More elf huts. Christmas Crescent. The Claus old house has the reindeer hutching posts out front. Santa's Helpers Highway. Elf huts on Santa Helper Highway have porches, and the big ice slide is right at the back doors. The elves living here get to work fast. Icicle lights. The North Pole is so magical that the lamp posts grow their own tinsel. It's winter wonderland here. New village. After what Santa's helpers like to call the big behaving boom, we have got a lot of more elves and buildings because there are so many good girls and boys. Polar Bear Bay. New buildings at Polar Bear Bay. This is quite a swanky place for elves to live, especially since the elves new to the North Pole were used to just living in trees and things before. Elfin Way, the newest building on the North Pole. On Elfin Way, the more nature sophisticated elves tend to live here. You know, the ones that only like those fancy imported marshmallow in their hot chocolate. And finally, New Village. If you think the elves have neat houses here at the North Pole, make sure you swing by Santa Claus Castle. Okay, now, while we're on about the subject of the North Pole, Who recalls the reindeer's names? Do you remember on Comet, on Cupid, on Dunder and Blixen? Do you remember them? No? That's because that's never been their names. As you can see there, it says Dunder and Blixen. However, here it's Donder and Blitzen. Now, Blitzen is definitely what it was, and Donder used to be Donna. I'm fairly sure about that. But as you can see, it's now all changed. So, Donder and Blixen instead of Donna and Blitzen. Just something else for you to add to. Whether it's a Mandela effect, that part I think must be a Mandela effect. But as for the rest of the North Pole, who knows? Let's see.